Hello and welcome to Homer for Sunday, October 19th, 2025. Today we are going to be reading from lines 387 to 399 in Book 12 of the Iliad, in which Sarpedon drags down the wall and we have some deaths on the battlefield. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and let's get right into it. Antiochus smote Glaucus, the stalwart son of Hippolochus, as he rushed upon them with an arrow from the high wall where he saw his arm uncovered. And he stayed him from fighting. Back from the wall he leapt secretly, that no man of the Achaeans might mark that he had been smitten and vaunt over him boastfully. But over Sarpedon came grief at Glaucus' departing, so soon as he was ware thereof. Yet even so forgat he not to fight, but smote with the thrust of his spear Alcmaeon, son of Thestor, with sure aim, and again drew forth the spear. And Alcmaeon, following the spear, fell headlong, and about him rang his armor, dight with bronze. But Sarpedon with strong hands caught hold of the battlement and tugged, and the whole length of it gave way, and the wall above was laid bare, and he made a path for many. Wonderful. Let's do it in the Greek. Taukroste glaukon kotoron paiki polokoio. Passumenon balatekos upseloio. Hechrideguom notenta brachiona pause de carmes. Abstapotekos autolaton hinameti sekaion. Blemenon natresse yekeo keteo tepesi. Sarpedon tidakos genato glaukua apiontos. Alticapet noes nomos dualetha tocarmes. Al hogetes doriden alcmaona duori tuchesas. Nuxec despasenancos despomenos pesaturi. Prenessam vidahoi brachateuche apoi gilacalcoi. Sarpedon darapalexin helon kersisti varresin. Helche despetopasa diam peresauta ruperte. Te coseguum nothe polesi dethe cakelauthon. Wonderful. Auta ruperte te coseguum nothe. So right then and there, right, he tugged the wall above, right, and so hespetopasa diam peres, right, so everything went down, right, abroad, right. He grabbed it, halon epalxin, right, so he grabs the defense with his hand, right, and he drags it down, right, helch, right, is what that means, and the te kosegum no te, the wall is made naked. I think that this is a really interesting religious moment, actually, because we all know in Genesis, in the biblical tradition, the Old Testament, how man and woman are naked and they are not ashamed, right? Here we have a bit of shame and nakedness in the Iliad, right? So we have right? So, right, he stayed him from fighting, he saw his arm uncovered, right? So, brachion agum notenta, right? So arm nakedly, right? He saw it that way. He stops him from fighting, right? Abstapotekos altalaton hinamet hisekaion, such that none of the Achaeans, blemenon atrese yakaya cheto tepesi, right? None of them, seeing him smitten, right, would delight or gloat and speak these words about him, right? Epesi, these words, right? When they're el cheto, like toward him. Right, and this is to vaunt, right? This sort of like, be happy at his misfortune, because they would see that he had been naked, right? So his arm had been exposed, right? What is it about exposure that seems to be naked, right? What is it about exposure that seems to make nakedness that connotation of like, oh, like you're not, this isn't good, right? And why is it that, when you feel shame because you're exposed, this is a bad thing? When the wall comes down, the Achaeans are now exposed to the Trojans coming in. Sarpedon, the hero, does it. It's almost as if the hero's job is to drag the wall down and expose it so that people can go on forward. And when this happens, exposure of this new way for ideas to compete against one another, the Trojan ideal or their group and the Achaean ideal, right? These two groups in the Iliad, now they're conversing with one another, and the results, the synthesis of them may not be a best case scenario for both of them, right? I mean, some people are gonna die, some ships are gonna burn, that sort of thing. Thinking deeply about how the wall falls and all of a sudden, you know, there's like also like echoes of language here. Right? It sounds very, very similar to the brachiona and then tekeos above in lines 389 and 388, right? I think that there's deliberate echoes here. I think that one can find a strong connection with this idea, and Sarpedon's ability to break down this barrier with his stibaresi, right, is the same way in which one would also break somebody down with words if they're smitten off the wall, which can happen interiorly. So not, you know, he doesn't want anybody to see him, that he's got his arm exposed, right? But forcible exposure does beget synthesis, and we do move the plot forward. Okay, that's a lot. We can talk more about this some other time. I'll leave you there today. I feel like this has gone long enough. Thank you so much for listening, and let's continue this deep conversation tomorrow where we will share more Homer with the world. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day. Bye.